So what I would love to do is just spend a good 2 minutes just telling you about who I am. I represent the Episcopal Church Foundation. I started there just last April, so it'll be a year this year. Prior to that iteration of employment, I worked for an organization called Ministry Architects doing consulting, children's, youth, young adult, and what I loved was church-wide strategic planning. It was kind of my jam. And when I had the opportunity to start working with ECF, I was super excited because I get to do similar work, but with Episcopal faith communities. One of the things I wanted to highlight, because I haven't gotten to do much of that the last few days, is one of the programs I'm most proud of. It's called the Episcopal Fellows Program. The ECF Fellowship Partners Program. It's a great fellowship. So if you have some type of ministry project or something that you'd like to launch and you haven't because money is an issue, we would love to talk to you. One of the things that our ECF Fellows programs does is, I don't know if it's because of or it's just because we want to partner with enigmatic, charismatic, and entrepreneurial leaders. Many of our fellows go on to be deans of seminaries, bishops, the who's who in the church. And so we would encourage your application. We can talk to you about some ministry projects that you have on your heart, and we can partner with you to help you make it happen. We have 2 tracks, an academic track for people who are pursuing higher degrees beyond the master's level, and a ministry track. So if you have any questions, please grab my card on the way back. Kirsten Besser is in the back here. She's also helping with the Fellows program. So any question, we'd love to talk with you. Okay, and about me personally. So I've been in vocational ministry for over 20 years. What? Well, isn't that funny? Just what? My husband is an ordained Episcopal priest. He's a rector outside a small church outside of Philly. So we're in the Diocese of Pennsylvania. He went to school with Colin. It was fun. Yeah, we got to do life together. It was really fun. So he went to General. So we lived in New York City for a few years. While there, I had the honor and privilege of working with the presiding bishop's office as Catherine's communications assistant. So that was really neat. And I've got 3 kids. I have a almost 19-year-old freshman in college in Boston, a middle child with the crazy purple hair, Kirsten. She's going to be 15. And my son Peyton is going to be 13, who's home today with the flu. And the 2 ones on my lower left hand there is my dog Reese, who is just my pride and joy. She's 12 and a half. She's getting up there. And the newest addition to our family, Mars, the sun conure, who's really loud. Anybody want a bird? Anyway. Okay, so let's talk about the current volunteer landscape. And I apologize for this because this is probably the wordiest slide I have. But some stats you might like to be interested in. We have to know that we're dealing with different landscapes depending upon who people are in the room. We have different motivations for why we volunteer, and oftentimes they're tied to the generational cohort in which the person finds him or herself or theirselves. Baby boomers, they are aging and volunteering at an all-time low. They're volunteering less and less, unlike the parents before them who are still volunteering at the local hospitals and the libraries, etc. I don't know why. Some speculate because they did a whole heck of a lot and they feel like they've done their time, they're done. It is what it is. But baby boomers are actually, though they have more capacity and bandwidth to volunteer time, they are doing it less. That's just the trend according to the National Department of Labor. Gen Xers are corporate volunteers. They tend to love volunteering together. You'll see many the top Fortune 100, Fortune 50 companies that have even programs for entire workforce volunteer days. Gen Xers are leading that way. And millennials are volunteering at an all-time high, and if they don't get what they want, if they're not serving in ways that are meaningful to them, they're piecing out and starting their own nonprofit. So they want to make sure that millennials feel really connected to the way they're serving. Millennials don't have much time for just giving up of their time just for, I'm not going to say it because I'm live streaming, I think. I'm not. I was going to use initials, but that's crass. Anyway, they're doing it, and they want to make sure that they're connected to where they're serving. So what does that mean for people who are recruiting folks? We have to understand their key motivations and make sure that they're serving in ways that they feel affirmed and encouraged to do so, like they're tied to the way they're serving. Any questions about any of that? Okay. Today's volunteers are smart. Thank you, Google. Just like in the experts, people can easily get any information that they want. And so they don't have much time for being uneducated, and they're not going to put up with your stuff if you don't know what you're doing. So as the recruiter or anything, you have to kind of know that your volunteers are savvy, and they want to make sure that they know what's going on and feel equipped to do so. They need flexibility. So no longer do we have, I don't like the cliched old time stuff, because we're kind of emerging into a new enlightenment around people and who they are, where they're coming from, and motivations. The fact is, though, is that our landscape, culture, society is no longer conducive for, say, double income or single income, family with 2 kids, boy and a girl, white picket fence, the whole 9 yards. I don't know if that ever existed, so that's why I don't like talking about it. They demand clarity. Volunteers need to know exactly what they're saying yes to. My knee jerk, as someone in the church, I do a lot. So my husband's a rector. I obviously do a lot for the church. It's very difficult for me to say yes to a big thing unless I know exactly what is expected of me. However, I do say yes to big things if I know I'm going to be serving in ways that are affirming to me and using my gifts. But I want to be clear. If someone says an open-ended ask and say, we'd really like to have help with the such and such bazaar coming up, please see me if you're interested. Absolutely not. And I am not in the minority there. Most people are like, absolutely not. I don't know what that means. What am I getting myself into? My knee jerk, my go-to is no. And I'm not alone. And volunteers are out of here if they don't feel like they are being set up to win and they don't know what's going on with the plan. So all of that said, when we're doing recruiting, it should be an intentional process so that people know what they're getting into and they feel affirmed and encouraged by doing the role or whatever they've been asked. A note about the word volunteer. I loathe it. We are all ministers, whether we're lay or ordained, etc., and all those things in between. Volunteering is something I do at the school. Volunteering is something that someone might do at the hospital or the library. And maybe that is the way that you're living into your baptismal covenant and you're serving your area and your neighborhood. And so when that's said, that might be volunteering to you. I see it as something bigger and a higher calling. I just wanted to say that. I think language matters. So I want to make sure that folks know that when I say volunteer, I don't like the term just volunteer, because we make the world go round. We make church happen. And not to say that it's on our backs, but we need to know that volunteer, I think, minimizes the role of whatever anybody might be doing as living into what they feel called to do. All right, so turn and discuss with your tables. This is the interactive part. 3 qualities of an awesome volunteer. If someone wants to take notes, fine, but this is not a test. But what do you think are the 3 most important qualities of a good, solid volunteer? What are 3 things that drive volunteers crazy about leadership, whether they're paid or volunteer leadership? And what are 3 things that might drive leadership crazy about volunteers? Discuss. So just with a show of hands, I'm just curious the landscape of who we have in the room. How many people consider themselves to be volunteer? Okay. How many people consider themselves to be paid staff? Okay. All right, that's helpful. So let's talk. 3 qualities of an awesome volunteer. Pepper them out. Come on. Reliable. Flexible. Takes initiative. Positive and stays within, the boundaries, right? Doesn't go off on a tangent. Tell me more about that. Oh, so renegade, right? Like going off the rails. Okay, cool. Yeah. Any others? Awesome volunteer qualities? Cheerful. So positive disposition and committed, for sure. Okay, what about 3 things that drive volunteers crazy about leadership? Unclear, ambiguity, communication, right? What else? Tell me more. Ah. The classic bait and switch. Yeah, for sure. What else? Oh, yeah, when the leadership isn't flexible, sure. Oh, that's a good one. Good one. Yes, there's double standard. Sure. Yeah. Not appreciating the time of, say, the volunteers, right? Yeah. Super frustrating. Y'all are listening, right? All right. All right. 3 things that might drive leadership crazy about volunteers. Yeah. Unreliable. Mm. Yeah. The martyrdom sometimes. Sure. What else? Owning ministries or lack thereof or what? Oh, the proprietary leader. Yes. Oh my goodness, yes, for sure. Colin. Oh yeah. The Eeyore. Chris. Oh my gosh. So someone said online being called just a volunteer. Can I just say, not all right, I actually wrote a blog post about this like 7 or 8 years ago, and I had the word just with the line, a circle and a line through it. It might be April, because I think April might be Volunteer Appreciation Month. I don't know if that's still a thing. I hope it is. But yeah, there's no such thing as just a volunteer, for sure. Thank you for saying that. All right, so here's a list that I put together. It's certainly not exhaustive, but awesome volunteers, they take initiative. Somebody said that, right? They take initiative, they step forward, they do what they need to do, they step up, they step in, right? They read all the communication to stay informed. So this is something, y'all, volunteers take initiative. The reality is this: sometimes we're not awesome. Sometimes as leaders, we're not awesome. We're not communicating as effectively. I think an awesome volunteer reaches in and says, yo, I need this information. Can you please share it with me? So if they're not informed, an awesome volunteer is going to communicate the fact that they don't feel informed, and they're going to get informed, okay? Awesome volunteers show up, right? They're dependable, and they prepare. So today, in today's world, in our busyness, I think preparedness is one of the things that we're lacking in volunteers. I'm going to use Sunday school as a prime example. So I love Godly Play, huge fan. I, as an adult, get engaged and can just get lost when you hear an expert Godly Play teacher deliver Godly Play. What I happen to know is that Godly Play is so awesome when it's prepared. But when someone is winging it, it's awful. And I've seen, unfortunately, more not so great Godly Play lessons than I've seen good ones. That stinks. But yay, Godly Play, it's magical when it's done well, right? And kids sniff that out too. Kids know when you're not prepared. And by being not prepared, you're basically kind of unintentionally communicating your lack of care for them or the person that you're supposedly being prepared for. So keep that in mind. They worship regularly and are in active discipleship. Discipleship, friends, is growth in Jesus. We're not just showing up and remaining, sedentary and whatnot, but that there's a sense of growth and bringing people along in it. So some people who just show up to teach Sunday school but aren't worshiping, I don't know, is awesome. I think the best volunteers are people who are also actively engaged in the life of the church, worship, liturgy, and all that stuff. That was a big ball of opinion, but it's mine, so I can say it. They follow Matthew 18. Y'all know, Matthew 18, that's a triangulation passage where if someone sins against you, you go directly to that person and try to resolve it. And if it doesn't happen, well, then you go back to that person, try to resolve again. And then if it doesn't happen, you bring someone with you. But triangulation is going to someone else and asking that person or sharing that person to either advocate for you without you or gossip about you, etc. So an awesome volunteer does not perpetuate triangulation and lives into Matthew 18. They also minimize politics. So an awesome volunteer isn't going to allow someone else to triangulate. They're not going to perpetuate gossip. And they're going to eliminate parking lot meetings, whether they're in the parking lot or at the coffee pot. Okay? What did I miss? Anything else we should add to the list? Awesome volunteers? Yeah. Oh, I love it. Standing committee. She calls it the standing committee. That's great. Okay. Awesome volunteers don't do these things. They don't prepare on the drive to church or at the red lights. Yeah. Yeah, they will be. They will be. They've been having hard times, by the way. If you've gone to the app and you've been unable to download, it's perhaps because they weren't able to be uploaded in the first place. We're having real problems with the internet. They don't create drama. Friends, this is especially great if you're in youth ministry because your youth are doing it enough, right? They don't need added help or fuel on the fire. So great volunteers don't create extra drama. They also don't back out at the last minute, right? They honor their commitments. They live into it. They don't go around, over, and under the process. So I'm so glad you had said, what is your name? Suzanne. Suzanne mentioned they don't renegade, they don't go out of the bounds, they don't do all that kind of stuff, and you're right. They don't go over, under, or around the process. They don't renegade it, and they make sure that they stick to the plan. Everybody needs to be on the same page because we should be on the same playbook, right? And so when people kind of steer out of their lane, it can disrupt the entire process. And awesome volunteers don't leave God out of the equation because they're disciples. It should be prayerful, etc. What else? Anything else? Yeah, Chris. Oof. Wow, that's a heavy one. I don't know that I can articulate all that back. When volunteers drink to excess at church events. Oh, or they come into the office and plant themselves in your office, kicking up their heels, kind of disrupting your entire workflow, right? For sure. Thank you for saying that. They don't do those things. Anything else? All right. Next slide. Let's talk about good leaders. Good leaders do not send out info at the last minute. This is rough, you guys. Especially since many of us are called to ministry because we care about children, youth, young adults, whatever capacity with whom we're serving. We're typically not called to ministry to do administration. Communication is one of those things that we just have to do. It's part of our job. So if we're not good at it, we need to create allies or partners and others to help us live into that more fully. But this is on you as the staff person or the key leader, that you must evaluate the way through which you're communicating and do it consistently so people know where you're at. Good leaders allow others to shine. They share, they empower, they are prepared themselves, right? So I have to say, I've been doing ministry for about 20 years vocationally, and I think, especially in the beginning, I got by on my personality. I was a hot mess, organization-wise and preparedness. I banked on the fact that I could get on the floor and I can engage a child just being with him or her. And the parents loved it, right? Because I was engaging relationally. I was making them feel good and communicating my love for Jesus and sharing that with them. I got way, way too by on my personality, and that's not okay, right? So preparedness is a big deal, and we have to take that seriously in the roles that we find ourselves in. Good leaders make things fun. If it's not fun, figure out how to make it fun, for real. I know there's going to be times that we have to do things because we just have to do them that aren't fun, that are part of the job. But as much as possible, smile, laugh, play. Create an environment and a work atmosphere that you cannot wait to get to because you're doing life in a way that is just so engaging and you can't wait to be a part of it. Try to create that culture in and among your staff. Good leaders use technology. This is another thing. We have an aging church, and we have amazing what do we call them? Catechumenates? Is that what we call ourselves? Catechists? Thank you. Catechumenate. I think that sounds better. Right, that's right, the people who are receiving. Thank you. So catechists who've been doing this a while sometimes get by on the fact that, well, they've been doing this a while and aren't necessarily on the curve of technology. It doesn't give you an out. We're not grandfathered. So we want to make sure that you are utilizing technology to its fullest, because the deal is this. Our children and our youth are using technology on every day. It is a part of their DNA. They are being changed on a physiological level. It's crazy. And so we need to be able to speak their language. So if it's not your gift, again, identify an ally and get with it, because we need to use the technology that our children and our youth are using in order to remain relevant and engaging. Good leaders build a team of partners, not servants. Friends, this is for my lay people and my ordained people. You should not have been hired to do ministry for people. Can I get an amen? You have been hired because people, or I hope you were hired, because people have recognized in you the giftedness to equip and empower others to do ministry with and for people. Okay? No one should be abdicating their ministry to others without partnering. So leaders should not be treating volunteers as, their servants or, just the delegation league. They need to be bringing them along, because the reason why you've been hired is to equip and empower the others. Does that make sense? Truly, we are all in this together. This is a collaborative effort. Thank you for saying that. She said vice versa. It is a collaborative effort. And friends, we can be leaders together. It's not like a little duck with the ducklings behind. That's not leadership anymore. So we need to be collaborative. And last but not least, good leaders take care of controversy quickly. We don't push conflict under the rug. We can talk truth and love, but we do need to address conflict when conflict arises. Did I miss anything? Yes. Yeah. Model Sabbath and thank people well, affirm them. Thank you for saying that. That's towards the end of the presentation. That's great. Ben. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're going to be a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Ben said not thanking people. I have some really weird ideas, and some maybe it resonates with some people. Maybe it doesn't. It is complicated, so we're going to talk about that for sure. Okay. Okay, the next is a video, and it's just something little fun. Don't read too much into it. It's really, really funny. This might have gone the way the early disciples recruited for volunteers.
And now, another exciting installment of Origins of the Early Church, Episode 17, Disciple Draft.
Yeah, come on in. Hey, you must be Justice.
That's me.
Well, go ahead and have a seat. I see you brought your guitar.
I did.
Well, tell us, Justice, why do you want to be a disciple?
Well, I don't know. I love God.
Great. Go ahead and show us what you got.
All right. I like to play the guitar.
Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord. Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord.
When your life's a mess, I wish you could see.
Man, I'm glad we skipped church. I heard this Sunday was on tithing. Wait! Ah! Where are we? It's so bright.
So, tell us about your experience.
Okay, I have a lot of experience. I've served tons of gods, Baal, Molech.
Thank you.
Well, I'm a very spiritual person.
Thank you. We're looking for someone who is very committed. Do you think that you can handle that?
Well, I don't know. What's it pay?
What do you mean my name's not in the book? I went to church every Sunday, except this one.
Yo, we're undeniable, disciples that are pliable. You can't hear what we're speaking. We never work on the weekend. Take the Sabbath off. Never pick up the mat, never rap soft. Always rap right, and that's how we fight. Verbally, never physically. I always rap metaphysically. Gotta hire me and my brother here. And if you don't, I'ma burn you like a McDonald's coffee. Okay, I think I'm done right here. End the rap and you hire me for the year. What you think of that?
Hey, thanks for coming, guys. We'll be in touch. Thank you all. James, is that it?
Thank goodness. I didn't think I could watch another drama.
Is that what it was?
It's your idea for the talent portion, John.
So what do we got? I didn't see a single person that meets our requirements for a disciple.
I like Matthias.
Which one was that again?
He was the guy with the sticks.
Justice was pretty good.
He couldn't carry a tune in a bucket.
Yeah, but since when is singing one of the requirements for being a disciple?
What are the requirements again?
The ideal disciple should possess leadership, experience, faithfulness, and commitment to Christ.
Like whenever you denied him 3 times.
I asked you not to bring that up.
Maybe we're being a little harsh. I mean, none of us really had the requirements when Jesus first found us.
We need God's leadership, okay? He's got the next disciple picked out.
Yeah, but how are we gonna know?
Guys, I have an idea.
Parchment, dagger, stone. Parchment, dagger, stone. Parchment, dagger, stone.
Tune in for next week's exciting episode of
Yay.
Origins of the Early Church.
Okay. All right. So that was just something a little fun. I hope you liked it. What I would love to really talk about is just kind of how I see typical volunteer approaches or volunteer recruitment approaches. But I do need 4 volunteers for this. 4 outgoing, lovely volunteers. Who would like to step out? Sally. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Talk amongst yourselves. We'll be right back. Come on. Just go ahead. 1 or 2 minutes while I orient our volunteers here. Okay, friends. We have 4 players who are going to do some role play for us, and our job is to identify which of these 4 roles you think they are. Who would like to go first? Don't tell them who you are. Come on down.
You can ask whoever you want to volunteer. Okay, so I have been watching you in church, and I just feel like you're spirit-filled, and we have a godly playroom. Yes. It's the 3 to 5-year-olds, and I know people are sometimes scared of them, but I'm going to promise you something. You watch these videos, and you see how these people do it, and then you go in the room, and the Spirit is with you. And the children, I mean, it's just like amazing. It's miraculous how they just sit and listen. And at the end, I mean, it only takes a minute or two to tell the story. And at the end, you know that God is with you.
Fantastic. Would you mind standing right up here, please? Thank you. Next. Oh, wait.
Okay, I really, really need some help. I have the annual meeting is this Sunday. I need 6 pots of chili. Please, please, Colin, will you please do it for me? I'll give you a bobblehead if you do it for me. I really, really, really need some help because it's in 2 days. I'm really not ready, but I know anybody out here could do it for me. Please. Thanks, Colin.
Thank you. Go on up there. Next.
Okay, everybody, we've got the big lobster fair coming up. I need somebody to help me organize the vendors. Oh, wait, I've already got a list of vendors. They've already been contacted. You can do that. Okay, I need somebody to do the youth activities for me. I've already got them listed out and some supplies for you and the schedule that you need to do for all the... Can you do that? Okay. And then let's see, we've got the ticket sales. I've already got them printed, and they're at the printer. And I'll have them picked up and given to each one of you. I've got your names on them. Who would? Oh, yeah, I'm sure you can do that for me, too.
Excellent. Thank you. And last but not least.
Hi, I'm your Sunday school director, and I need some volunteers to help with the kids. It's an easy job. I've got the curriculum for you. Good. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Saturday night, I will email you with the lesson for the next day. Now, I bought all the supplies, but don't touch the ones that are in the other room because that's for the next week. But this week, you will have X lesson, and you're going to be... Now, I want you to do it in this way. Now, there's a prescribed lesson. Now, you have to start with prayer, and then you're going to move into snack, and that's the time for sharing. But if you don't feel comfortable with it, I can come in and be your assistant if you'd like.
Thank you. All right, so between these 4, you all did a smashing, wonderful job. Well done. Who was our beggar? Sally, for sure. Well done. Thank you, Sally. Who was our cruise director? Yes, fantastic job. The classic bait and switcher, for sure. And who was our control freak? Yes, our last one was the control freak. So friends, I like leaving the last 2 to the last because they're so similar, but their motivation's different. So let's give our final 2 a round of applause. Have a seat. So sometimes we can find ourselves in all 4 of these roles. I'm just saying. It's not like you're just one, but oftentimes you're motivated. The beggar is often motivated by unpreparedness and last-minute stuff. That at the end of the day, he or she needs help and is just let it go just far too long and is really in a bind and just needs help. So you want to try and avoid being a beggar. One of the best ways to do that is make sure that you're prepared. The cruise director is someone who's just going to paint this beautiful. By the way, that might have been my favorite cruise director role play of all time. It was so good. It was so good. It was great because they will often paint this beautiful, amazing picture without necessarily fully naming all the junk, too, that goes along with it. When people are surprised, they are less apt to say yes again. So cruise directors will oftentimes get the volunteers they need, but they're not going to get repeat customers or people to work with again. The control freak just needs to let up control a bit and be more permission-giving. And like the Lone Ranger, tends to do things on his or her own by choice. The Lone Ranger often will approach things because he or she feels that they don't want to put anyone out. They don't want to be an inconvenience to you, which, friends, is an ugly emotion if you think about it. Because as recruiters, we are inviting people along with us. We are inviting people into the full work and ministry of whatever you're trying to do. And so by approaching recruitment in the way of scarcity, like we don't want to put upon you, it almost undervalues what you're trying to do in the first place. Okay? Thoughts or questions? Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Hey, thank you for saying that. So for people who are watching online, she said sometimes we fall into the roles because things need to die and we're less apt to just let them go. If we're not getting enough energy around it, maybe it just needs to go fallow for a season, right? Okay. Yeah. No. Colin, the goal is not a little of each. The goal is none of each. You want to try to make sure that you're painting a really clear picture in a loving, joyful way and in a prepared way, etc. Thank you for that. Well done. Well done. So let's talk about how Jesus recruited. If you're interested in Matthew chapters like 3 through 10, it's a long book. We're not going to put them up on the slides. We like alliteration too. So I got this from my good friend and pal and co-author, Stephanie Caro. She lives in Houston. We have a book coming out, 10 Solutions for Small Churches. And this is totally hers. I completely, stole it. She recommends that we do recruitment like Jesus did. So in Matthew 3, it's really when, he approaches John the Baptist, becomes baptized, and then he goes out. So the Holy Spirit was invoked. He invoked the Holy Spirit. Then he identified his folks. Then he invited them to be a part of it. He informed and he initiated them through education and equipping, and then integrated them into his own ministry. If you think towards the end, they weren't just witnessing or encountering miracles, they were helping Jesus do it, right? So let's talk about invoking. In your own context, you want to invite the Holy Spirit to be a part of this process. Friends, this volunteer recruitment process needs to be Spirit-filled. Pray about it. Ask God to put on your heart people that you think she or, the Spirit thinks needs to be living into, right, and through. So invoke Spirit, pray. Ask the Spirit to raise up names and ask others to pray for the process. So I like working an intentional process that is out there so people understand, hey, look, our ministry is doing its recruiting right now. We would love for you to pray with us so that the right people might bubble up and serve in a joyful, life-giving way. And last but not least, don't just put it on a prayer list. Recruit others to help you recruit. Don't go it alone, okay? You want to identify 4 to 5 people from the church to sit down with you to identify people that they think would be great working in this way, regardless, whether it's children's ministry, youth ministry, young adult education, whatever area. Altar Guild. This process works across the board. Do not just identify anyone. You don't want to identify just anyone. If they're good enough to fog a mirror, doesn't necessarily mean that they're good at that they're right. Not good enough. We're all good enough. But they might not be right to serve in your context. They might be better serving somewhere else. They should be well connected. These 4 to 5 people with whom you're identifying others, note, we're in step 2 and we haven't asked a single person to volunteer. And last but not least, they too should be prayerful. So again, cover the entire process in prayer. Next, invite. You want to, after identifying the potential pool of candidates, you want to invite them intentionally to prayerfully consider what you're asking them to do. You should provide them an information packet that has a job description in it. Job descriptions, friends, might be your number 1 volunteer recruitment tool because it clearly articulates what is expected of them and how to be successful, okay? Give them time to pray about it themselves. So friends, this is not a process that you're going to want to do 2 days before the annual meeting. Sally, right? You want this to be months out. 6 months out. That might sound crazy, but if you want this to be an intentional, prayerful, Spirit-filled process, do it well out in advance. And finally, give them an opportunity to ask questions and answer them so that they feel well informed. Back. Next, inform and initiate. So Jesus spent an awful lot of time teaching, right? I have the worst story. Like, I don't drink much coffee. Mike, my husband, loves it. He drinks so much coffee, but I don't. And naturally, I don't know the first thing about how to make church coffee. That percolator thing is so intimidating to me. I know that sounds crazy, but like, how much coffee? How much filter? How much do I do? Like, I don't know this stuff. So I kid you not, as the spouse of the clergy, I'm always asked to serve on the hospitality committee. I don't know why, but I am. And so the first time around, I said, sure, I'll do that. And despite the fact that the church had such beautiful P-Touch, you know those the Brothers P-Touch machine, those beautiful label makers? The kitchen had a label for every single drawer and cabinet. And they had this beautiful list of what to do to make coffee. So you would think someone like me, who's pretty educated, could probably make coffee, right? So, okay, the coffee hour. I was on a team by myself. And coffee hour was 20 minutes late, and people had to come in and rescue me. I was flustered. I hated it. And the next 4 years, anybody who had asked me to be on a hospitality committee, I'd say, do I have to make coffee? Because if so, absolutely not. Count me out. Until I went to another church where, though they had instructions, they walked with me. And I had fun serving on a team with people. And darn it, I can now make coffee like nobody's business. Okay? What I'm saying is that it's a nice illustration of what inform and initiate is. We need to walk beside people. We need to equip them to do the job that you've asked them to do, regardless of what your preconceived notions of their ability or inability is. How many of us teach Sunday school? How many of you say, oh, this person teaches 4th grade in the local public school district, they'll be great? No. The fact is, it's a little different. Don't assume just because someone's a teacher, they're going to be a great Sunday school teacher. No, they need to be equipped, they need to be brought along, and they need to make sure that they have everything they need to feel successful. Sometimes they do. Absolutely. She said sometimes they need time off from 4th graders. Amen to that. So don't make any assumptions. Make sure they have a clear picture of what they're saying yes to. Jesus spent 3 years preparing his disciples. 3 years. He didn't give them a short little orientation and pat them on the back and say, good luck with that. Right? And finally, he welcomed questions to an evaluative conversations. Okay? That's sadly things that are missed. We need to know that our volunteers, the people who we're serving with, have amazing brains and an amazing capacity to evaluate and feel what's going well and what isn't. And sadly, we don't tap into that as a resource, and so we stunt progress. So we need to remember that our volunteers are constantly evaluating. Not only are they evaluating you as a leader and the ministry y'all are doing together, they're evaluating how they feel doing it. So you need to have conversations about that. Oh, I missed one. Okay. All right, so integration. This is the part where you're giving them room to grow, room to add, room to transform and change the ministry. If they've been equipped in a way and that they are full and equal partners in this ministry, you need to give them space to change you, space to change the ministry. That's what integration is. So by volunteer recruiting, you are welcoming transformation on all levels. You want to empower them, and you want them to duplicate themselves and welcome them into that process. Okay, let's see what we got here. Recruitment necessities. Your volunteer needs list. The first and foremost thing that you should do to make this an intentional process is to create a master needs list. Where are all of the opportunities to serve in this church? That's number one. You need to know for what you're recruiting before you know the who, right? Then the next is a volunteer fishing pond. I like the fishing pond metaphor, go make fishers of people, right? So you want to have that as a list of people, potential volunteers that you've identified before you've asked them. Okay, we'll go over this a little bit later. A volunteer call is a good idea to have kind of just a script, an idea or a flow of what that kind of initial call might look like. And last but not least, a volunteer packet for your volunteers to really think about what they're saying yes to. Okay, so let's talk about that. Identifying all your needs, creating the names, and next but not least, after you identify the people that you think would be good serving, we like to rank them. That might sound icky, but here's what when we would recommend that you identify 3 to 4 times your need. So if you need to recruit 15 positions, Sunday school teachers or youth group leaders, whatever, that's 15. There should be 45 to 50 people on that list. It's a lot, but we're all in this together. You want to rank them, and I have a web ranking. And this is a Mark DeVries method, by the way. I got to give credit, who is the author of Sustainable Youth Ministry, Sustainable Children's Ministry, etc. You want to rank W, means if this is for children and youth ministry especially. W stands for with kids. E stands for either with, and the B is behind the scenes. Because not everybody's awesome working with children, but they love them, and their gifts are elsewhere. So let's incorporate them onto our list, but give them a B. They're behind the scenes. Maybe they're good at coordinating major events. Maybe they can help you run the mission trip from behind the scenes or at home, home base. The next thing is to rank them. I like calling it first round, second round, third round draft pick. I don't like saying in a pinch, because the fact is that you're identifying 3 times your need. They're all awesome, right? So they're all making the draft pick. They're all making the rounds. You just want to know who are the ones you're going after first, and when they say no, who the next people are you're approaching, and then the third people you're approaching, okay? And then finally, you need to identify who is asking and how they are asking. So keep notes, keep tracks. Google Sheets are awesome for this. Questions about this? Colin. Mm-hmm. Everyone, all right, so Colin said, how do you manage volunteer heads who recruit their own volunteers? Yeah. Sure. 2 answers, and they're both fine. I've seen them both work. My favorite is when you have an equipping team in your church that is managing the entire equipping kind of process. A great resource is a book called Equipping Church by Sue Mallory. She talks about this, creating a way that everyone's gifts are kind of tracked and that they're being invited into ways that are fulfilling and affirming for them, okay? I like that because, wow, if you can do it, it's awesome. If not, we have to remember that this process has been spirit-filled. One person might land on a list of 5 different ministries, but we need to give the Spirit room to work in that person's heart and know that they are saying yes to something that they resonate with. So we have to approach volunteer recruitment not as a consumeristic, like, I need volunteers. We need to do it in a way that's saying, gosh, I recognize these gifts and so, and they'd be great on our team. I hope they say yes. So you might have 3 or 4 different separate fishing ponds. The Altar Guild might have one. The Children's Ministry might have one. The Youth Ministry might have one. And the same person might be on the fishing pond or the list of every single one. They might get asked by 3 different ministries. And I say, awesome. Because that person should be able to have the freedom and the flexibility of saying yes to what they feel called to do. I don't know if that's helpful. I don't know. I think the church-wide, there's something very romantic about that and intentional at a church-wide level. It's complicated. It's complex. I shouldn't say complicated. It's complex. And I think it can be done, but it needs to be done with intention and strategy. And I think Equipping Church by Sue Mallory might help you do it. Totally. Yeah, so if you can systematize that, Like, to me, I'm sorry, guess what I would burn out from? Not doing youth ministry. So if anybody were to tell me that I can no longer serve in the ministry, the youth ministry, because I need to take 3 years off and give, like, I get that I need to step away and let other people lead, but if I'm not involved in the youth ministry, I'd feel bereft. So I feel differently too about that kind of stuff, but you can systematize it really nicely at the global church level in your congregation context to do it well. So Sue Mallory, check out that book. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. So what goes in the volunteer packet? A 12 to 18 month out calendar. 12 to 18 month calendar. Who are my rectors? Yeah, man. Who are my rectors? All right. Listen to me. Listen to me well. You can hold a ministry hostage if you are not doing this on a church-wide level by not calendaring 12 to 18 months out, friends. You can hold ministries hostage. You can actually create backbiting and competition, inter-ministry competition, by not doing this well and not doing it in advance. You know what? We know what the liturgical calendar is. The holidays are all the same. Get your stuff together and let people do it. Google Calendar is your free friend. All right? Job description should be in there. A well-written job description of what is expected and what success looks like. What is winning? Guidelines and expectations for youth and adults, because youth are a part of this too. Just because if you have a youth leader, like a leader who is a student, they too need job descriptions. If they're a small group leader or something, it's always good to treat them in the same way that you treat your adult men and women. Youth ministry mission, values, goals. If you're a children's minister, if you're altar guild, if you're a separate ministry, this goes hand in hand. You can have a church-wide youth mission, but you also should have individual ministry goals, 2 to 3, I recommend. That's in line with your overall mission, but that should be in the packet so people know what they're saying yes to and what team they're on and where the direction that y'all are headed in. The teaching calendar. Children's ministry too. Sometimes I revert back to my youth stuff, forgive me. But children's ministry too. If you're a Sunday school teacher, have the calendar planned out for the entire year. If you have a teaching rotation as schedule, make sure that your teachers know when they're on so that if they have to find a substitute, etc., whatever. And last but not least, the scope and sequence. It's really great if you can predict for a whole year your teaching calendar and the themes of each week. So not only teachers know what they're doing, but parents as well know what you're teaching the kids. And last but not least, an organizational chart. You should be able to say whose responsibility what is, and an organizational chart is a really good way to do that. Okay. Finally, breaking up is hard. Just because you're a volunteer doesn't mean that you can serve in it because it makes you happy. The best way to do this is to have evaluation. You know, there's evaluative processes, there's evaluative conversations year in and year out. Don't call it a job review. That's way too HR-y. But take your person out for coffee. Sit down and say, you know, how did this year go? How did it feel? What have you learned? What have we learned together? Is this still a great place for you to be serving in? This is an opportunity for you to have open, direct, and gracious communication, to express what you would like to see and say, you know what, gosh, we have a value of grace. And I understand that we want to teach kids. And I know sometimes, I've noticed sometimes that you get very frustrated when these kids aren't really listening. And, you know, some parents have complained that their kid gets put into timeout. And I understand that kids are disruptive, but I just want you to know, I want you to keep up the good work. Let's try it this year. What I would love for you to focus on is including more of a grace-based approach, and know that the Spirit is moving in and through you. And though we might have an objective of what we want to teach, our number one objective is coming alongside this kid and showing him and reflecting him or her the love of God. So how about instead of a timeout, we might reimagine together ways that we might respond in those situations. That's year one. And the year two, maybe it's going to be awesome. But if it's not, You have to say, okay, we can either reassign, try a different thing, redirect, different ministry, or bye, Felicia, you belong in the altar guild. Right? Like sometimes the fact is that you need to protect the integrity of the ministry, right? And that unfortunately is going to fall to the leader. You should never be making these, unilateral decisions. If you are a ministry program director under the supervision and direction of a rector, make sure he or she knows this stuff before, right? So be on board, but know that you're not stuck with a bad team. You just have to make sure that you're taking the time to bring people along with you. Questions? Yes. Great question. At what point does the rector need to be driving the Bye Felicia? All right, so I would say between the evaluation and the reassign process, the rector needs to be onboarded and know that something's happening. I would say reassigning is something internally within the ministry. Redirecting is something beyond the ministry. And the Bye Felicia might be a bigger, much more global problem. So I think between evaluation and reassignment is when we engage the rector. The rector needs to be a part of, coming alongside between reassign and redirect. And I think it's all the rector for Bye Felicia. Okay? Friends, I have a video. I don't know what our time is. I don't even know. Are we done? That's awesome. Great. So I'm going to show you a video. But before I do that, I would love to just open it up with you all. Thoughts, questions, impressions. Yeah.
Hi, I'm a volunteer, and I've been a volunteer for 30 years. I was asked as my sister catechist to come and find out where are all the volunteers. And I'm hearing indirectly some of this, like if you don't take care of your volunteers, they're going to go away. But I'm also aware that most families have two breadwinners. I mean, how well does this work with the realities we're living in now?
Great question. So the good thing is that when I work this process, I get the volunteers I need. I work it out 6 to 8 months before I need them. I can also say this, volunteers are volunteering at an all-time low, more so than any other time, according to the U.S. Department of Labor. The good news is that the number one area through which people are volunteering is church, okay? I think the second part to that is making sure the affirmation, and I'm so sorry, I thought I built a slide for it, it's not. Affirming versus thanking is very nuanced. I would love for us to reimagine ways that we are affirming our folks in the job well done. Like, good job, job well done, good and faithful servant. That kind of thing. Versus, thank you for helping me. Does that make sense? Oftentimes, a gift card to Starbucks, that might be nice, but I think it's very transactional. So I would love for churches to reimagine ways that they are incorporating their volunteers, that their ministers, in how they're communicating how they felt in service, what they've received outside of a tangible thing, and letting them share their story. There are a number of different ways that you can affirm versus just a little thank you. Poinsettias are great and all, at Christmas, but if you took a little extra effort and did something, maybe a tree that they can plant in their yard with a little even plaque going the extra mile saying, may this something take root and be a reminder of that. I'm really not that well created, but that's the difference.
The other thing is, I think you can't assume. We used to bake our own bread for communion, and everybody was hesitant to ask. Everybody's busy. It's really hard to make bread. We asked this one newcomer, and she burst into tears. It was like, what? She was Roman Catholic, had gotten a divorce, and asked not to receive communion in her church. So she came into our church, and the first thing we asked her to do is bake the bread. It was a joy and a blessing for her, not a chore. So sometimes if we don't know the backstory, we don't know.
Another thing is making sure that you're not assumptive. So not approaching volunteerism as a I need, and a welcome onboarding thing. I sing. I've sung my whole life. I love to sing. And people are always, the first thing they say to me, it's like, oh, you should join the choir. Well, guess what? I wish I could join the choir. I don't have the time for the choir. And it's worse when I made guilt. Like someone says, oh, well, what a waste. What a waste. It's like, wait a second, I'm part of the choir in the pews. Like, that's a full and equal offering to our worship life together. I don't need to be in the choir up in the front of the room to be using my gifts. So we cannot approach volunteer recruiting in a consumeristic, transactional way. Suzanne, I feel like there was a second part of your question that I don't know that I got to, but I've already missed it. Is there another part? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly right. So I saw a hand back here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Yep. Yep. Let's talk about that, because oftentimes people, before they put the name, the identifying part, that fishing pond list, they will make preconceived notions about a person's willingness, ability, or interest even. Gosh, don't do that. Put them on the list. If they're awesome, ask. Welcome. And don't be offended if they say no. But we have to invite very intentionally, not based on our own preconceived notions, because we have to trust the Spirit is already working in that person because we've asked the Spirit to do so. Right? So we can't forget that this entire process. So I work this process. The process works if you work it. There's a level of intentionality that we have to up our game, and it's been very effective. I don't know that it's safe, fail-proof. I don't know that anything in ministry or relationships is fail-proof. But I can tell you with a level of intentionality and strategy that I'm much, much more effective in engaging volunteers in this way. Any other questions? Well, this last video is just meant to be an encouragement, so I hope you enjoy. Oh, kid president, where did you go? Okay, maybe you've already seen it. I am going back. Here we go. Breaking up is hard.
I think we all need a pep talk.
Could we get more volume, please? Thank you.
The world needs you to stop being boring. Yeah, you. Boring is easy. Everybody can be boring, but you're gooder than that. Life is not a game, people. Life isn't a cereal either. Well, it is a cereal. And if life is a game, aren't we on the same team? I mean, really, right? I'm on your team. Be on my team. This is nice, people. You got air coming through your nose. You got heartbeat. That means it's time to do something. A poem. Two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the road less traveled. It hurt, man! Really bad. Rocks, thorns, and glass. My parts broke. Wah! Not cool, Robert Frost. But weren't there really were two paths? I want to be the one that leads to awesome. It's like that dude Journey said, don't stop believing unless your dream's stupid. Then you should get a better dream. I think that's how it goes. Get a better dream, then keep going. Keep going, and keep going. Will Michael Jordan have quit? Well, he did quit. No, he retired. Yeah, he retired. But before that, in high school, what if he quit when he didn't make the team? He would have never made Space Jam. And I love Space Jam. What will be your Space Jam? What will you create will make the world awesome? Nothing if you keep sitting there. That's why I'm talking to you today. This is your time. This is my time. It's our time. We can make every day better for each other. If we're all on the same team, let's start acting like it. We got work to do. We can cry about it, or we can dance about it. We were made to be awesome. Let's get out there. I don't know everything. I'm just a kid. But I do know this. So everybody's doing to give the world a reason to dance. So get to it. You've just been pep talked. Create something that will make the world awesome. Play ball.
All right. So, friends, I love when Stephanie asks a question about what does movement mean to you? And I always think of the word dance. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because of that crazy video you saw. It was kind of like a Woodstocky type of thing, and one person starts dancing and is just like doing his own thing. And before you know it, one or two more people start getting up and dancing. And then before you know that, it's like a huge thing and everybody's dancing. I think dancing is contagious. I hope you learned something, and I hope you learned that you can apply stuff. The slides are going to be made available through the app and the Forma page, etc. And if you're ever interested in any resource, don't forget that ecfvp.org is a huge resource for you, especially in the area of lay empowerment, volunteering, and all of that jazz. We have monthly newsletters, and I would encourage you to subscribe to that because it really is a great resource for you. We also have templates. So if you feel like you could use extra help in any of this regard, my card is up here. I'd be happy to share it. You can always call our office. And yeah, any questions last minute? Can I pray? Can I pray with y'all? The Lord be with you. Gracious God in heaven, I am so grateful for the opportunity to spend time with folks, especially over the last 3 days as we've discovered different ways or new ways or fresh ways of equipping and forming all people in the faith. I'm grateful for the gifts and the talents that you've given all of these people in here who just want to make your word known and make you known with the people they're serving. God, I ask that you bless them, continue to bless them in their ministry, inspire them, convict them, give them the perseverance to do your will in amazing and imaginative ways. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much.